Committee on Oversight and Government Reform will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time. Appreciate everybody being here. Reforming the United States Secret Service is not a partisan issue. Ranking Member Cummings and I have presented a united front on this issue, and I look forward to continuing this important work with him on both sides of the aisle. The most important mission for the Secret Service is protecting the President and his family. However, a litany of recent mishaps raised major concerns. In 2011, nobody recognized shots were fired at the White House until bullets were discovered by maintenance staff. It has been well publicized that Secret Service agents engaged in misconduct in Cartagena, Amsterdam, and Miami. In September of last year, a security contractor with an arrest record rode in an elevator with the president in Atlanta armed with a gun, completely unbeknownst to the president's detail. A few days later, a man armed with a knife jumped the White House fence, made it past the Secret Service well into the White House. And now on March 4th, the second in command of the president's detail drove his car through a crime scene involving a bomb threat while the president was in the White House. This has to stop. The Secret Service has a zero-fail mission to protect our president and his family. This is especially true for the president's protective detail, or what is often referred to as the PPD. We need to understand why these incidents keep happening. This committee requested the special agent in charge of the PPD, Robert Buster, attend a bipartisan closed-door briefing regarding the incident. Director Clancy said no. The committee requested the supervisors on duty before and during the incident of March to testify today, but Director Clancy said no. We asked Director Clancy to turn over video footage of the incident, and again, the director said no. In our closed-door briefing last week, Director Clancy was unable to adequately answer questions about the events of March 4th. Instead, he asserted that by referring the matter to the Inspector General, he was unable to ask any questions of his own. But Congress is also doing an investigation. To not do an investigation would be malpractice on our part. Congress has a role, we have a duty, we have a responsibility to conduct our own investigation. By refusing to allow the witnesses we invited to testify with firsthand knowledge of the incident, Director Clancy is keeping Congress and the American people in the dark. On top of that, the Secret Service has missed every deadline to provide this committee with information with no legitimate explanation as to why. It is unclear why Director Clancy is choosing at the start of his tenure to be so unhelpful to Congress. While I was hopeful Director Clancy would assist Congress in understanding how we can restore the agency to its prior stature, this does not appear to be the case. The March 4th incident is concerning on three major points. Number one, the interference of crime scenes by senior Secret Service personnel. Number two, allegations involving decisions, communications, and dispositions of senior Secret Service personnel. And number three, the agency's apparent botched response to a bomb threat while the president was in the White House. Although the Secret Service has refused to provide video footage of the incident, the Metropolitan D.C. Police Department has. Initially, I had indicated that I was frustrated about the lack of response by the Metropolitan Police Department. This was based on information given to us by the Secret Service. I was critical of the chief and suggested that Chief Lanier was going to get a nasty gram from Congress, which we sent. But I can tell you, I have nothing but praise and thankfulness for her and her department and agency for swiftly and completely responding to Congress's requests. We appreciate her, the men and women who work at the Metropolitan Police Department, and their swift response to our requests. It certainly stands in great contrast from what we've seen from the Secret Service. Now, we're going to show part of a video here that was provided to us by the Metropolitan Police Department, but a few things before you see this. On March 4th at 10:24 p.m., a woman drove her vehicle to a security gate outside the White House fence line on 15th Street and left a package she claimed to be a bomb. Secret Service agents and officers at the scene confronted the suspect but were unable to apprehend her. The package sat unattended as traffic drove by for a long period of time. It took 11 minutes for the Secret Service to call the Metropolitan Police Department bomb squad. For 17 minutes, 17 minutes, traffic continued through the intersection and several pedestrians walked within feet of the potential bomb. I don't understand how that happens. When the Secret Service finally did call, they failed to mention to the Metro Police Department that it was an actual bomb threat rather than just a suspicious package. And as has been explained to us, there is a difference. There's a difference in the response time and the approach that they take. You can understand how around the perimeter of the White House, there are oftentimes items that are left unattended. But it's a wholly different situation when somebody comes up and places at the perimeter of the White House a package that they claim to be an actual bomb. Let me show this video, and I'll try to best I can. We have this, we'll put this up on our YouTube channel to try to describe what's happening. It's 10:30 at roughly 10:20 plus at night, 15th Street. There's the car, it pulls up. You can start to see the person who has dropped off the bomb, and then you'll see an officer come out and try to apprehend the person. They've actually been charged now with a variety of different crimes. The potential bomb really sits next to that building right there. And again, we're doing time-lapse video, but you can see the cars have been driving by and whatnot. Then we're zooming in here, and you can see that the agents that were in question about what they were doing. This is a full 30 minutes after the initial would-be bomb was placed there. You can see that there are some big cones or big barrels that are put out. Now, again, we got two crime scenes at this point. The assault on the officer, and then you have within just a couple of feet, you can see they're actually bumping into that barricade there. That is not much of a barricade in my personal opinion, but driving right within a couple of feet of this would-be bomb, which begs a lot of additional questions. It takes the Secret Service and the Metropolitan Police Department about an hour and 20 minutes to finally come to the conclusion that this is not a bomb and that the scene is then rendered safe. An officer followed the suspect in her car. So we get to another part of the story which begs a lot of questions. Somebody drives up, drops off a would-be bomb, and then the Secret Service actually gets an officer behind this person. But they were mistakenly called off the pursuit when the Secret Service identified the wrong car as the suspects. So actually right behind, I can only imagine this officer saying, I've got this person in my sights, but instead of pulling this person over, instead of maybe going to that extra step to just check, gets waved off. And they pursue another car who isn't actually the suspect. 30 minutes after the woman fled the scene, the Secret Service finally issued a BOLO, a be on the lookout, for a vehicle to local law enforcement. Metropolitan Police Department didn't know for 30 minutes what vehicle they were to be looking for. 30 minutes. The suspect was finally arrested 3 days later, 90 miles away, by a different police agency on unrelated charges. The day before she was arrested, she was interviewed by the Secret Service agent, but the Secret Service claimed they were unable to arrest her and instead canceled the lookout for the woman. Back at the White House on March 4th, two senior Secret Service agents, including Mark Connolly, the president's second in command of his protective detail, disrupted the crime scene. These agents placed themselves, their colleagues, and the president and his family in potential danger by driving their government vehicle through a barricade within feet of a potential bomb. Under Secret Service policy, video footage of the incident should have been retained. However, most of the footage, evidently, according to the Secret Service, has mysteriously gone missing. I find this highly suspicious. In a briefing last week, Director Clancy and Deputy Secretary Mayorkas played committee members two tapes of the incident that showed the same few seconds from two different angles. Just a few seconds out of an incident that lasted more than an hour and 20 minutes. There were 8 members there, 3 committee chairmen, several ranking members, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans. Though limited, the footage clearly showed the agents purposely moving the barricade aside with their car. I want to set aside for a second the concern that the Secret Service is only maintaining video footage for one of the most important buildings in our country for only 72 hours. That makes absolutely no sense on any level to me. Because there are issues related to national security, the prosecution of the actual event, and the basic ability to learn from past instances as we're having to deal with now. But based on the Secret Service policy, video footage of this incident should nevertheless been retained. We have 2 crime scenes that should have immediately been highlighted. Yet an agency spokesperson told CNN, quote, "In the event of an operational security incident at the White House complex, specific video footage is maintained for investigative and protective intelligence purposes." That would seem to make sense, but that's not what's happened here. Yet Director Clancy and Deputy Secretary Mayorkas only showed 2 very limited views of the incident to the committee. Does a potential bomb near the White House not qualify as a, quote, "an operational security incident," end quote? If a potential bomb doesn't qualify, then what does? These tapes should have been retained, and this committee intends to find out why they were not. We were only shown seconds of a video for an incident that lasted for more than an hour. Director Clancy, today we expect answers, and we expect you to know them. We're nearly 3 weeks after the incident. To help you prepare for the hearing today, my staff reached out to your Congressional Affairs Office to let you know what subjects we would be covering here today. Your staff was fully briefed on what we expect you to know. I want to let you know that the "I don't know" strategy is not going to sit well with our committee. We look forward to your answering the questions and providing clarity on what happened March 4th. We do appreciate you being here. I can tell you that you have been personally very accessible, and I greatly, personally, very much appreciate that. So with that, let me now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Cummings.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you for calling this hearing today. Director Clancy, welcome again. And let me start off by saying, Director, that there are moments in life that are and should be transformative moments. In other words, there are moments in all of our lives where something happens. It may very well be negative, usually it is. And then we have to pause for a moment and learn from it and correct it. And if we do not correct it at that moment, in my 64 years on earth, I've discovered it usually gets worse. I am here to tell you that we are at such a moment. And the sad part about it is that these moments seem to keep coming. Usually in life it's one moment or 2, but they seem to just keep coming and coming. And I tell you, I have great concerns, and I'm glad this is a bipartisan effort, because this is bigger than us. This is bigger than the Secret Service. This is about the security of the most powerful person in the world. So this is not, I know that this will not get down to a partisan battle. Will not get down to a gotcha. But this is about us trying to do our job. Your job and the great men and women of the Secret Service's job is to guard the president, his family, our former president, and other protectees. Our job is to make sure you do your job and make sure that you and the agents are accountable. Now, I must tell you that I was disappointed to find out that we will not hear from the other Secret Service witnesses the committee invited to testify here today. Director Clancy, I have the greatest respect for you and your service to our country. Your job is crucial. Your reputation is exceptional and sound, and your desire to protect your agents and officers against unwarranted intrusion is admirable. But as I've said to you before, if we are going to err, let us err on the side of the safety and security of the President of the United States of America. And so we wanted to speak with these witnesses for a very simple reason. According to your own testimony, you did not know about this incident until 5 days after it happened. You yourself have said that is unacceptable. And again, as I said, we have those transformative moments, and that's one symptom of the problem, saying that we need to do some transforming. Your predecessor, in my conversations with her, one of the things that she said was that quite often she did not get information, she did not get complete information, she got inaccurate information, and in some instances got no information. Something is wrong with that picture, it was wrong with that one, and obviously there's something wrong here. With all due respect, I have to say how disappointed I was with your initial letter on Friday. It simply announced that you would be the only witness today without providing any reason for the other witnesses not testifying. No other committee is doing more on this issue than ours. And we are trying to conduct our work in a responsible, bipartisan manner. We really have no room for error. And if we're going to err, we err on the side of the safety of the president. But when we receive a response that rejects our request with no explanation at all, it's difficult to view that response as respectful, which I know is not your intent. I understand that. For these reasons, I was heartened to receive your letter yesterday, in which you outline your specific concerns with the public testimony of agents charged with protecting the president. I also appreciate your offer to work with this committee to examine other ways to provide us with the information we need to fulfill our constitutional oversight responsibilities. Of course, we all understand that there is an ongoing Inspector General investigation of this incident, and we respect that. The IG has informed us that he will be moving quickly and should be able to answer key questions in weeks, not months. We recognize the Inspector General's investigation could result in recommendations for disciplinary action. And the last thing we want to do is interfere with that process. But keep in mind what I said. If we are going to err, we must err on the side of the safety and security of the president. That is why the chairman and I have committed to consulting with the IG directly before taking any significant action that could impact this work. Director Clancy, my most significant concern has always been, and remains today, that you did not know about this incident and that nobody at the entire agency told you about it. There's something awfully wrong with that. 5 days, 5 days, 5 days went by while you were in the dark. Last year, when the former director of the Secret Service, Julia Pearson, sat in the same chair that you're now sitting in, I warned her that she was not getting the information she needed to do her job. I alerted her that agents and officers believed they were better off staying silent instead of raising their concerns up the chain. I informed her that there were agents that felt more comfortable coming to members of the Congress of the United States than talking to people who were the higher-ups at the Secret Service. Something wrong with the picture. And I lamented an environment at Secret Service that would allow these deficiencies to continue. Yet, that appears to be exactly what happened here. I believe that when the chain of command is broken, when the chain of command is broken, there is no command. It's like a body without a head. And when there is no command, there is vulnerability. Again, that vulnerability goes to the safety of the President of the United States of America. So let me make something very clear. This is not business as usual. This is not just another oversight hearing about just another agency. I admire this president greatly. I admire him for his challenges, the challenges he's overcome to be president, the accomplishments he has achieved since then, the principles he stands for on behalf of our country and the world, and the contribution he's made to our nation's history. I also admire the people, our former presidents, and their families. I want to make sure, and all of us want to make sure that they're protected. So I don't want you to take this personally. This is about us doing our job. You have to be accountable to us, but your job is, of course, to guard the president. And so I do not want anything to happen to him, not under my watch, not under this watch. And so this was not be about politics. It cannot be. It cannot be about headlines or unnecessary disputes that contribute nothing to the solution. We must come together in a nonpartisan way to take concrete steps, both publicly and privately, to turn this agency around. Again, this is a transformative moment. If we fail to do that in this moment, it can only get worse. The agents and officers of the Secret Service risk their lives on behalf of this great nation. They are great human beings, great public servants, and they deserve an agency that they can be proud of. One of the things that has concerned me greatly is the anonymous email that you got to us. Would somebody put this up? This email, you're familiar with it, are you not? And this email concerns me. Since last Wednesday night, the Uniform Division established a crime scene at Special Post 15 at the White House after a package was thrown at an officer. The officer was told the package was a bomb, so they taped off the area and made it a crime scene. Then at some point, an ATSAC from WFO, PBD, and a PPD DSAC drove through the crime scene tape. UD officers at the scene said they were both extremely intoxicated. They were coming home from Ed Donovan's retirement dinner. They apparently flipped on the lights on their government vehicles to go around the roadblocks. Then they nudged the barrels close to closing the posts with their government vehicles. Then were waving their White House passes around, confused as to why the post was evacuated. UD officers were going to arrest both of them, but the UD watch commander said not to. Apparently, the whole incident was captured on video from inside the JLC. What I don't understand is this. A lot of people got this email. A lot of them got it, but you didn't. That is a problem. But you know what really bothers me? As I read this, I kept reading this email this morning over and over and over. And you know what I concluded? It appears that we have an agency at war against itself. The idea that in an organization like this, that somebody would create this kind of document to bring this kind of disruption when they are supposed to be guarding the President of the United States of America. We're better than that. In some kind of way, we have to take advantage of this transformative moment. If we don't, it can only get worse. And with that, I yield back.
Now I recognize Mr. DeSantis of Florida. He's the chairman of the Subcommittee on National Security. Mr. DeSantis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The website, Secret Service, lays out the vision, and that's to uphold the tradition of excellence in its investigative and protective mission through a dedicated, highly trained, diverse, partner-oriented workforce that employs progressive technology and promotes professionalism. Notwithstanding that statement, the Secret Service has been falling short of that standard, and I think the chairman did a good job of enumerating some of the problems we've seen in recent years. We are here to examine this most recent incident, and I got to say, I joined the chairman in expressing my disappointment of the lack of cooperation. We wanted to speak with witnesses. We wanted to have information sooner, and I think that that's not the way that this is going to be productive. This is a very important role that the agency plays, not only in protecting our leaders against threats, foreign and domestic, but that's part of a larger mission to protect the integrity of our government and to make sure that elections are honored and that the people who are elected to those high positions are safe. And I think to do that effectively, you have got to have a system that has robust accountability. And I think that's what the questions that we're looking at today say, okay, where is the accountability in the agency? And it just seemed throughout the whole saga with different problems that there's not swift accountability. And I think that's going to make it more difficult to get the agency where we all want it to be. But I do commend the chairman, Mr. Chaffetz, Ranking Member Cummings, and my colleague on the National Security Subcommittee, Mr. Lynch, for their diligence in ensuring that those that carry out this important mission are given the tools they need to carry out their responsibilities. We want high standards. We want accountability. That's important, and I think the American people want nothing less. And I look forward to Director Clancy's testimony, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. Now recognize the ranking member of the Subcommittee on National Security, Mr. Lynch of Massachusetts, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank Ranking Member Cummings for his work on this, as well as Chairman DeSantis. We really appreciate the fact that we're working together on this. This hearing is to examine the continuing lapses in security involving the U.S. Secret Service. I'd also like to thank Director Clancy for being here and to testify this morning. I have the utmost respect for Mr. Clancy, but I have to agree with the chairman, Mr. Chaffetz, and the ranking member, and Mr. DeSantis, that the fact that you were not notified of this incident for 5 days concerning your two agents is totally unacceptable, and it shows a deep problem within the organization that we have to deal with. At the outset, I'd like to notice that the purpose that we're having this hearing today is not to disparage our dedicated Secret Service workforce. Rather, this bipartisan investigation into recent security incidents at the White House and other Secret Service protected locations and events is founded in our genuine concern over the safety of the President, his wife and his daughters, his mother-in-law, and White House personnel. Regrettably, systemic challenges, antiquated security protocols, and entrenched agency culture have given rise to glaring gaps in the security and the critical protection mission of the Secret Service demands that we make every effort to address them. On the heels of the White House fence jumping incident that occurred on September of 2014 and reported gunshots near the Delaware residence of the Vice President in January 2015, we've now learned about two security incidents that occurred on the White House grounds on the night of March 4th that again call into question the effectiveness of existing security protocols, security technology, information sharing, and post-incident review at the Secret Service. In briefing this committee on March 17th regarding the alleged interference of two Secret Service agents with a live bomb threat investigation at the White House, the Secret Service played us two brief and seemingly incomplete video clips of a slow-moving vehicle bumping gently into a plastic barrier those videos were taken from almost identical angles and contained absolutely no audio. In response to member requests that he provide us with additional videos of the incident, Director Clancy revealed that the Secret Service routinely overwrites security camera footage after only 72 hours. Given that Director Clancy also informed us that he did not receive notification of the alleged interference until 5 days later on March 9th, the security footage in question was reportedly purged 2 full days before the director even found out about the security incident. That is simply unacceptable, and it tells me that we need a stem-to-stern review of our security technology policy at the White House. Director, you invited us over, members of the committee, to review the command post for the surveillance of the White House. And I know for a fact we have full spectrum review and surveillance over that area. We probably have 5 or 6 cameras at least that would have given us useful information regarding this incident. And as the chairman pointed out, we have overlapping incidents. So we have a bomb threat, an active bomb threat while the president is in the White House and his family's in the White House. We have an active bomb threat. And then we have an interference by these 2 agents during that bomb threat, during that incident, and we purge the tapes. We purge the tapes. That active bomb threat against the White House was something that should have raised red flags with personnel from the Secret Service. It should have been on everyone's mind. I know that multiple emails went out to supervisory personnel. Everyone knew this was a bomb threat, and yet we went ahead, at least that's what I'm hearing so far, that we went ahead and purged the tapes surrounding that surrounding that bomb threat to the White House within 72 hours. We destroyed the evidence. And that completely is, that is just mind-boggling that we might do something like that. Now, I've got a lot of questions. I know the members of the committee do as well. But as a frame of reference indicating the inadequacy of a 72-hour video retention policy, I would note that my own state of Massachusetts requires state and municipal agencies to retain their security videotapes for 30 days under the state public records statute. And that's why agencies ranging from the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority to the Boston Housing Authority have a 1-month video storage policy in place. In addition, under its current memorandum of agreement with the Federal Transportation Security Administration regarding the use of consolidated camera surveillance systems at Logan International Airport, the Massachusetts Port Authority also has expressly agreed to retain captured images for 30 days. That's at the request of a federal agency. We retain that for 30 days. Moreover, our local educational institutions such as Tufts University, University of Massachusetts, have also implemented 30-day retention policies for the campus security cameras. In addition, I have a number of kindergartens in my district that retain, because of the security interests of those children, they have a 30-day policy. You know, I have to tell you, and I've said this before, you know, my local Store 24 has a better surveillance system than we have at the White House. That's a sad statement of affairs, and that's been because of a number of directors going back beyond your own service. So there's a lot of questions to be answered here. I'm going to let the rest of my statement go. I appreciate the chairman's indulgence, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank the gentleman. I will hold the record open for 5 legislative days for any members who'd like to submit a written statement. We welcome today our witness, the Honorable Joseph P. Clancy, Director of the United States Secret Service. Before we go forward, though, let me say that the members of this committee, I do not believe that the President's presence of Mr. Clancy alone is sufficient to achieve the goals of this hearing today. It is the committee's intention to bring forward a series of people in transcribed interviews. We would prefer to done this a different way. The Secret Service has refused our ability to do that, but the people involved in these incidents should know that they will be invited by this committee. Both sides will be present for transcribed interviews as we conduct this further. To our dismay, the Secret Service refuses to let other invited witnesses testify. In fact, the committee has questions. When we issued these letters and invitations for these individuals to appear, did they receive those invitations, or was the Secret Service prompted? Did Homeland Security become involved? We have a lot of questions about why those individuals who were asked to appear are not sitting here today. We do expect to close the loop with these witnesses in the future, whether that be at a follow-up hearing, but I said it is the intention and that we will most likely do transcribed interviews through this process. With that said, Mr. Clancy, we do appreciate you being here. Pursuant to committee rules, all witnesses are to be sworn before they testify. If you will please rise and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that the witness answered in the affirmative. Mr. Clancy, we will right now recognize you for your opening statement, and please know that your entire written statement will be part of the record, but we're pretty lenient on the time, but please share with this committee your thoughts and perspectives. Mr. Clancy.
Good morning, Chairman Chaffetz, Ranking Member Cummings, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here to discuss the recent allegations of misconduct on March 4th of 2015 and the agency's progress in fulfilling the recommendations of the independent U.S. Secret Service Protective Mission Panel. As Director, I'm honored to lead the men and women of this important agency through this challenging time. With respect to the recent allegations, I personally became aware of the incident on March 9th when I received a phone call from a former agent informing me of an anonymous email that was circulating. On that same date, I determined that the allegations should be referred to the Department of Homeland Security's Office of the Inspector General. I made this decision because allegations of misconduct involving employees at the GS-15 and higher level must be referred to the OIG in accordance with departmental policy. I trust the OIG's investigation will be thorough. I have committed the Secret Service's full cooperation to the OIG and eagerly await the findings of their investigation. The fact that I did not learn of this allegation until 5 days after it is said to have occurred infuriates me. This is unacceptable. I called my senior staff together the week before last. I made clear my expectation for prompt notification of allegations of misconduct that could impact our mission or that violate the agency's standards of conduct. If it is determined that any of our employees failed to report information about this alleged incident, they will be held accountable. Our mission is too important for this to happen. It undermines my leadership, and I won't stand for it. I am resolved to holding people accountable for their actions. But I want to make clear that I do not have the ability to simply terminate employees based solely on allegations of misconduct. This is not because I'm being lenient, but because the agency's ability to take action is controlled by Title V of the United States Code, which provides federal government employees with certain statutory due process rights. I must respect these rights and the procedures Congress has put in place to preserve them. As it stands, the next step in this process is to wait for the issuance of the OIG report, at which point we will determine the appropriate disciplinary actions consistent with our established table of penalties. Once again, if the OIG investigation reveals misconduct, those involved will be held accountable. I have personally reviewed video footage from the evening of March 4th with members of this committee. The initial reports of a vehicle crash were inaccurate. There was no crash. The video shows a vehicle entering the White House complex at a very slow speed and pushing aside a plastic barrel. There is no damage to the vehicle. However, many people have expressed serious concerns that the available footage from the night does not provide a full picture relative to the alleged misconduct. While the primary function of the camera systems at the White House complex is for operational security, specific video footage is routinely maintained for investigative and protective intelligence purposes. I share the concerns of this committee that more video footage from the night of March 4th was not preserved. After receiving consent from the OIG, the Secret Service has contacted the manufacturers of the digital storage unit and is leveraging our capabilities in cyber forensics to make every attempt to recover additional video footage from that night. Although it predates my appointment as director, Secret Service practice has been to retain footage from camera systems at the White House for a period of 72 hours. This practice concerns me. Therefore, I have directed that the video footage storage period be increased to 7 days effective immediately. I have also directed my staff to explore the feasibility of further expanding this time frame while being mindful of concerns related to security and privacy. Turning to fulfilling the recommendations made by the Independent Protective Mission Panel, I will touch briefly on each of these three areas identified in the report. First, training and personnel. Second, technology, perimeter security and operations. And third, leadership. Regarding training and personnel, I have consistently held that a primary focus of mine has been to increase the critical staffing in the Secret Service to meet the demands of the mission and to incorporate regular and consistent training to sharpen skills, ensure preparedness at all times. The Secret Service is expected to exceed its hiring goals for this fiscal year and maintain this pace for fiscal year 2016. We have also fully completed integrated training for officers and specialty teams within the White House branch and made improvements with respect to the amount of training received during fourth shifts by agents on protective details. With respect to technology and perimeter security recommendations, the Secret Service is in the midst of a multi-phase project to replace the current fence around the White House. The goal of this project is to mitigate security concerns identified by the panel, including delaying potential intruders to give Secret Service personnel more time to react. The selection of a final fence option will be followed by design, procurement, and construction phases. As discussed in the classified briefings provided to this committee, the Secret Service acknowledges the need for interim measures during this process and has conducted initial testing, research, and development to that end. Finally, with respect to leadership, I am moving to rebuild, restructure, and reinvigorate the Secret Service, including elevating and empowering those with specialized professional skills within our civilian force. By ensuring our people have the necessary resources, by developing budgets from the ground up, and utilizing a mission-based approach. In closing, I would like to make clear I am proud of our workforce and would be remiss if I did not recognize that the vast majority of these men and women perform their duties with honor and distinction. They deserve strong leadership, clear and consistent policies, and appropriate resources to support the important work they do every day. It is my life's work to ensure they get it. I thank the committee for this opportunity and welcome any questions you have at this time.
Thank you. Now recognize the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Gowdy, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Clancy, do you believe Congress has a constitutional right to provide oversight over the Secret Service?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that Chairman Chaffetz and Ranking Members Cummings are motivated solely by a desire to see what is best for the President and for the agency itself?
Yes, sir.
With those two thoughts in mind, does this committee have every single bit of video footage available from that evening?
I'm sorry, sir.
Does this committee have all available video footage from that evening?
It does not, sir.
Why not?
Sir, we have provided that footage, video that we have to this committee.
All of it?
We have shown 2 clips. We have not shown all of it.
That's not my question, Director. You just said that Congress has a constitutional responsibility to provide oversight. You just agreed with me that Ranking Member Cummings and Chairman Chaffetz have the best interests of the President and the agency in mind. So why wouldn't you not turn over all video footage to this committee?
Congressman, we will show all video at any time, day or night, that this committee would like to review the footage that we have. We have done that. In fact, the chairman was the first, I believe, to see this video before we show.
With all due respect, that's not true. Go ahead, Mr. Gowdy.
No, I would
Chairman,
want.
I'd like to just correct it. If I have to correct the record, I'd like to correct it.
I would like to yield to the gentleman from Utah because I was under the misapprehension apparently that this committee was not in possession of all available video from that night.
That's correct. They are not in possession of the video, but we did allow the chairman to view the video.
You've shown us less than 1 minute of video.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Well, back to my question. Will you make all available video? And I say available because we're going to get in a second to the fact that all of it was not preserved. Will you make all available video available to this committee?
We will make all video available to this committee for your review at any time, day or night.
Will you make a copy of it available so we can retain custody as opposed to simply showing it to us?
I will not release a copy of this video at this point.
Why not?
The OIG has an ongoing investigation.
Do you think the OIG's responsibilities supersede those of Congress?
Sir, I know that they have an ongoing investigation.
Well, can't you have simultaneous ongoing investigations? Why can't Congress provide oversight while the IG is investigating? Why do you have to pick and choose?
Sir, again, I think we have one initial investigation from the OIG, and we've given them the film to look at.
But you understand the responsibility of the IG is very different from the responsibility of Congress. Congress determines funding, among other things. The IG does not.
Sir.
So those two are not exclusive. Why can't Congress investigate what's in its jurisdiction while the IG does what's in its jurisdiction?
Congressman, I'm sure after the OIG's investigation.
I don't want to wait till after, because then that makes me think that you believe that Congress's constitutional responsibility to provide oversight is subservient to the IG. And surely to the Lord, you can't believe that.
Sir, the ongoing investigation that the Secret Service has as well regarding the protective intelligence case. We have an individual who committed a crime, made a threat, and that investigation is also going on at this time within the Secret Service.
And how will providing that video footage to Congress jeopardize that ongoing investigation?
That is,
with precision, how will it?
That video shows the actions of the individual who would be accused of a criminal act.
I get that. My question is, how will providing that to Mr. Cummings and Mr. Chaffetz jeopardize an ongoing investigation?
Well, again,
with specificity.
I am happy to show that video all day and be available at all hours of the day and night to show that video, but at this point we cannot release that video.
All right, that's the video that is available. The video that is not available, will you agree with me that there are at least 2 potential crime scenes at play on the evening of March 4th? At least 2. There's an assault on an officer and there's a suspicious package.
That's correct.
All right. Why would the video not be preserved as part of that ongoing investigation that you just cited as the reason you can't give the video to Congress? Why wouldn't you preserve it?
The process, my understanding of the process is that the watch commander on site relays back the incident that he is the incident commander for, and he calls back to our Joint Operations Center and says, we do have an incident here, we have a suspicious package. Preserve the video from this incident.
Director, I'm out of time, but I want you to consider for just a moment the dueling narratives that you had just portrayed.
Sir.
Number one, we're not going to give the video that does exist to Congress because its investigation is subservient to the IG investigation. That's narrative number one. And narrative number two is you're not even going to preserve video that could be used in a investigation of 2 potential crimes. Did I hear that right?
Well, we did preserve the video, the footage from the incident as those in the Joint Operations Center viewed it.
Well, right, but are you familiar with...
The gentleman's time has expired.
Well, some of my time was taken by the chairman, but that is the chairman's prerogative, and I would, of course, not ask for any more.
And the chairman obviously made the right ruling, so.
I yield back.
Good decision. We'll now recognize the gentlewoman from the District of Columbia, Ms. Nord, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that, Mr. Clancy, that you understand that the kind of the anger, the outrage that you hear really comes from this notion that you are a zero failure agency. We don't expect that, frankly, of most federal officials. I was really surprised to see that you have just now, I'm reading from your testimony on page 3, sent an agency-wide memorandum saying that they have to report allegations apparently right away. When, for example, before you came to the agency, you knew of the White House incident where they actually shot into the White House, and they had learned about that. The Secret Service learned about it perhaps months later when an attendant found these bullets. It seems to me that the very first order you should have been given is, please let me know. Don't put me on the hot seat of not knowing. And I say that because I think the committee did the right thing. It began at the right place with leadership. So we said we wanted new leadership. You're the new leadership. It said we want an expert panel. We had that expert panel. Now I think we ought to go. I realize you've not been in place for a very long time, but I'd like to focus us on the men and women who under you, because I don't think there's been any focus except for that panel, and that panel really did focus on what I was amazed to hear, that people were working sometimes 14 days and with a day off if they got it, but it could be denied, and that and I tried to link this to what I knew about the Secret Service, a kind of serial misconduct. You know, in Colombia, for example, in the Netherlands, all of it drunken agents. Well, see, I don't think that the Secret Service is a bunch of bums. So I've got to look at what is happening to these men and women. I asked the staff to tell me something about it. Are these people being trained, or are these people kind of letting it all out? And it looks like some of that is happening. And nobody's spoken up. And if somebody doesn't speak up, I'm not sure that this misconduct is not going to continue. This also was a drunken incident. But then I learned that in terms of your training, there's barely any training going on at the Secret Service. There were 8 special agent basic classes in 3 years, 08, 09, and 10. By 2012, there was 0. By 2013, there was 1. The panel said that you needed staff urgently. For starters, what is the problem? Is the problem with the leadership? Is the problem with the men and women? You're not getting good people? Why don't you speak up for these men and women? If in fact they're letting off steam because you're overworking them, are they being overworked? Will this budget that you've just gotten begin to relieve some of those serial days in which people don't get any days off? So would you describe that, and would you tell us more about training and what training sessions are expected, so that some of this misbehavior will be understood to be absolutely verboten?
Congresswoman, thank you. I have the same concerns you have. In fact, I want to hear more and more from these agents and these officers what their issues are. Just in a nutshell, I'll tell you that I walk by and around the perimeter of the White House frequently. This past Sunday, I went to the roll call midnight shift. The following morning, went to the roll call and wanted to hear what are their concerns. And in terms of the staffing.
But you can see what their concerns are. You know, the days off. Are people going to... according to the panel, the agents were consistently working 12-hour shifts under high stress, often with no days off. Is that going to change now that your budget has finally been released by the Congress, which has to take some of the responsibility for what's been happening as well?
Again, you're exactly right. When I first came back here, my #1 initiative was to increase the staffing. We've got to increase staffing, and to do that, we've separated one of our directorates, which is HR and training. We separated them apart to give each more specific training, and we have been working overtime to build up.
You have a new class for 2013. There was only 1 class. If you need more agents, they'll need more training.
Yes.
With this new appropriation, is there going to be another class of agents trained? And will the agents who are there, who used to get training, I understand, every 4 weeks or so, will they have that regimen of training again?
Yes. In fact, we will exceed our goals this year. We have 6 UD officers classes and 6 special agent classes that were scheduled. We will now go 9 and 8 classes. So we expect to hire a lot more people in fiscal year 15 and continue that into 16. That is a critical need for the service, and that will also help with getting more people out to training. In fact, since September 19th, the Uniform Division training has increased 110%. That's just a snapshot that we've got to keep the momentum going. And with the agent side of the house on the President's detail, that training has increased 78%. Again, not where we want to be, but as we increase the staff, we'll get more training for our people.
I thank the gentlewoman. Now I recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Mica, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Mr. Director. I've got some questions. I guess this is sort of another gotcha hearing. We just have incident after incident. We've had Cartagena, we have the fence jumper, we have this most recent one, and you testified that you cannot take action because on personnel as far as discipline because of Title V. But also, Chapter 102 of Title V sets some requirements. Have you seen a draft that was prepared last year? Can you give the director a copy of this draft? It's deliberative draft 72214, and it's amendments to the hiring, managing, and disciplining of its workforce. This is amendments for Secret Service. So rather than just talk about more incidents, let's get down to the brass tacks of the issues you face, right? First is hiring, right?
Yes.
You got to hire good people. You came and you said you need more people. I submit that you need better people and you need better qualifications. When I left the White House about a week ago, I followed a Secret Service car just by accident. And I said, "What's that on the bumper?" And it's actually it's actually soliciting for folks to work on the bumper of a police vehicle. This is the way we hire folks for the Secret Service. I didn't know your predecessor, Ms. Pearson, that well. She came from my local town. She called me after she was there for a while, and she says, "It's very difficult to get this place under control. I've got to have some ability to hire better qualified people." I didn't know that you didn't need a college education for some of those positions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, she said that by law we've dumbed down the qualifications. So first you got to hire people. You don't hire them with a advertisement on a bumper of a vehicle. You want qualified personnel with the highest qualifications, right? Secondly, you've got to be able to manage those personnel. And she asked for these things way back. And in fact, on July 2nd, there was a meeting with government reform staff. Do you know where these recommendations are? I was told they went back to DHS.
We have
where these suggestions for improvement are. Do you know where they are? Does anyone know? I want to know where they are because they've been sitting around. She knew what was wrong before, she was railroaded out. You'll be railroaded out too if we don't make changes. But the fault is in the guidelines that you have to follow. She told me managing personnel, administering them, you have a 20-year, I guess, retirement, then you have to retirement on the law enforcement side.
That's the older plan was a 20-year retirement, but the FERS is not 20 years.
Okay,
25.
well, in any event, when you got to the retirement, then it took 2 years to get people trained for SES positions. That still exists, right?
Yes.
Okay. She said that needed to be changed because the time they're able to administer, you're hiring people, getting the best qualified. Then you want the best administration, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we have an impediment in that. She asked for that change. Nothing's been done. It's probably sitting somewhere over in DHS. Then finally, she said to hold people accountable. Secret Service holding protectors accountable. That's what this hearing is about. She asked for the ability to hire and fire an exempt agency under Title V. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
You do. And that's one of her recommendations. But we have to do that because we heard, oh, there's no command. Well, hell, you don't have the ability to command because your hands are tied by Title V. You can't hire and fire. You have to go through this layer. I chaired civil service, and I know how difficult it is to get rid of folks, even disciplined folks. Most people are just moved horizontally to some other position. Isn't that just the case?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So, again, you've got to have the ability to hire and fire. This proposal I submit, which was last July, and I read the recommendations of the little group that came up with stuff. Until you address this fundamental problem, that director or whoever succeeds him will not succeed in managing his personnel because one, he can't hire people that are qualified. Two, he can't manage or administer those folks. And three, he can't discipline and hire and fire people that need to be held accountable. Is that right? Basically?
Basically, yes, sir.
Okay. And finally, if a bullet hits the White House, a window, or the building, has something been done to address that? You talked about the fence.
Yes, we have procedures now. If there's anything hits the White House, we have instituted procedures since 2011.
And I'd like to know more for the record or behind the scenes about drones and how they can penetrate the perimeter. Thank you.
Thank the gentleman. Now I recognize the ranking member, Mr. Cummings, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Director Clancy, I want to get down to something that you said was unacceptable, and that is when you found out about this incident. You learned of these allegations on May 9th, which was 5 days after the incident occurred. And that is a big concern for me, and I know it is for this committee and you. First and foremost, there's no doubt that you should have been informed about this incident immediately. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
So you should have been informed about it the day of?
Yes, that's correct.
At our briefing last week, you told us that no one in your immediate office had been aware of this incident. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Last week, you testified that the Secret Service personnel should have reported this incident up the chain. If I have this right, they should have reported as follows. From personnel on the ground to the Deputy Chief of the Uniform Division, to the Special Agent in charge of Presidential Protective Division, to the Assistant Director of Protective Operations, and then to you. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, yesterday, the Secret Service produced documents to the committee indicating that the Deputy Chief of the Uniform Division, Alfonso Dyson, became aware of these allegations on the night of the incident.
That's correct.
According to a briefing sheet sent to the Inspector General, and I quote, and I guess the briefing sheet is what you sent to start the investigation in the Inspector General's office. Is that right?
That's correct. And let me, if I can, correct the record, because I know I met with you and other members in a closed-door briefing, and you had asked, how has that process started? And I said, I think it's a phone call. And it was started with a phone call. But I found out subsequently that there is a follow-up letter, which is what we provided to you, that follow-up letter with our preliminary findings the very first day, on the 9th.
So in the briefing sheet, it says, and I quote, Deputy Chief Dyson advised that he was familiar with the incident involving DSAC Connolly and ADSAC Ogilvy, and was briefed about the incident on the evening of March 4th, 2015, end of quote.
Yes.
So Director, if the Deputy Chief of the Uniform Division knew about the allegations, did he alert the Special Agent in charge of the Presidential Protective Division? Did he?
I don't know, sir. And I'm going to tell you that I am infuriated that I have not been advised on March 4th. Why I didn't hear any of that information, I don't know. But I will tell you that the Deputy Chief needed to raise that up through the chain of command. And this is something that I've been battling since I first came back in a very brief time here. I've been back about 30 days. And we are working furiously to try to break down these barriers where people feel that they can't talk up the chain. I can tell you personally, I'm going out, reaching out to people, going to these roll calls and individually. We've got our Assistant Director of Investigations going out to the field, talking to people. We've got our Assistant Director of Protective Operations going out, talking to people. We've made all these avenues through Ombudsman, through hotlines and web pages to even anonymously get information up the chain. And why it didn't happen in this case, I don't know. If you're not comfortable, and our workforce, I'm sure, is listening today, if you're not comfortable going up through your chain of command, you have all these other avenues. Anonymously, you can go and report incidents of misconduct or whatever you want to report, but you've got to make use of these outlets.
Let me ask you this. How about the Assistant Director for Protective Operations? When did he learn about these allegations? Do you know?
I don't know. Well, March 9th. March 9th, because when I found out the morning of March 9th, I reached out to the Assistant Director of Protective Operations. He did not know at that point. I asked him to go find what he knew about it, what he could find out about it.
Now, I understand there's an ongoing IG investigation, but according to your own testimony, you did not learn about these allegations from anyone at the Secret Service.
That's correct.
Right? I'm concerned about whether there's still a problem with the chain of command right now, and it sounds like there is. Based on what you know today, who is the highest ranked person who knew about this incident and failed to report it, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, now again, on March 9th is when I was given all the details that we had, and we turned it over to the OIG. Then I stepped out of it. In all candor, right or wrong, I compartmentalized things, and I didn't want to see it. The deputy chief is the last one that was. That's how far it went.
Well, on more than one time here this morning, you said you had a meeting with your higher ups.
Yes.
And you told them you're not going to tolerate this. Did you ask them? Any of them, did you all know about this?
No, I didn't. I was very blunt with what was my expectation.
I mean, whoa. Rewind.
Yes.
These are your top people, right?
Yes.
Would that be the 8 assistants?
There would be more than that in this room. At that point, there were...
and you never asked them? You didn't say, ladies and gentlemen, who knew about this?
I did not.
Why not?
At that point, I honestly did not want to interfere with this OIG investigation. I wanted no indication where I might be pressuring someone, no indication that we've reached out to people or people to leave that room and say, hey, the director is asking for more information. I wanted to give this OIG complete ownership of this investigation.
Just one last question, Mr. Chairman. Director, at any time did you have a staff meeting where you would have expected? I mean, you know, you and I have talked about the sacred trust in the Secret Service, these jobs of honor. Would you have expected, did you have any meeting amongst your higher ups where you would have expected somebody who knew about this to say it to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I heard this on March 9th, I was in disbelief. I didn't believe it. But I called the AD and PO and I said, hey, look, run this out. But I honestly could not believe, especially over that time frame.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now I recognize the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Duncan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Clancy, all over this country there has been a growing belief for many years now that the federal government and many top-level federal employees have been becoming more and more bureaucratic, elitist, arrogant. And there's, along with this, there's been a growing belief that we've ended up with a government that's up by and for the bureaucrats instead of one that is up by and for the people. And when you refuse to allow these 4 witnesses to come here and testify to us who are supposed to represent the people as best we can, when you refuse to allow these 4 witnesses to come and you refuse to release most of the video that's been requested, you should realize that this looks very bureaucratic, elitist, and arrogant. And it looks as though you feel you're not really working for the people of this country, that you're working to protect the people of the Secret Service. And last week in the House Appropriations Committee, Chairman Rogers said in a very strong, very emphatic way that he felt there should be terminations and firings for all these incidents that have happened. And I hope that that you agree with that. I assume that you are close friends with Mr. Connolly and Mr. Ogilvie, but I hope that you feel that you have more of a duty to the people of this country than you have a duty to protect Mr. Ogilvie and Mr. Connolly and others who have been involved in these other incidents. What do you have to say about that?
So you're absolutely correct, and I've already made changes in our agency of people that I know and who served honorably, but I wanted a fresh perspective. Friends of mine, I have moved them or offered them positions in other components in DHS. So I'm not opposed to moving people that I know. It's all about the agency in terms of...
well, that's one of the problems, though. Too often, federal employees who really mess up, they aren't really disciplined. They're not cut in pay. They're not fired. They're not terminated. They're just moved to a nice desk job someplace else. And I've already been told that Ogilvy and Connolly have been moved to some other desk job someplace. Not much at all has been done to them. I'm going to yield the balance of my time, though, to Mr. Gowdy. I think he has another question or two that he wishes to ask.
Thank you, gentleman from Tennessee. Director, who has custody of the video that was retained and preserved?
Our Technical Security Division.
And who has the power to make a copy of that video and turn it over to Mr. Cummings and Mr. Chaffetz?
Sir, I would, in consultation with my legal counsel, but I got to be honest with you, I don't know that for certain. I'm relatively new in the position. I'll have to
Well, to the extent that you do have the power or you have influence over those that do have power, will you recommend that a copy of all video footage be made available to Mr. Cummings and Mr. Chaffetz?
Congressman, I'll certainly talk to our department and with our legal counsel.
Well, you don't need lawyers for everything. I mean, you got a bunch of them on this panel, and I'm telling you, if the only excuse they have for not turning it over is there some theoretical potential investigation or prosecution, I promise Mr. Cummings and Mr. Chaffetz they're not going to interfere with either one. I promise you that.
Yes.
So we can eliminate that concern. Now, will you turn over all of available video to Mr. Cummings and Mr. Chaffetz?
Yeah. Again, the video will be available at all times, but I will go back to the department and within our agency and revisit this.
Do you know if there was, emphasis on the word was, video footage of the alleged officer misconduct?
No, I'm not aware.
You don't know whether any of the cameras were trained on the car that these two agents were in?
The only video I'm aware of, Congressman, is what we have provided as they entered the gate at South Park.
Well, do you have a policy of retention and preservation of any video that could be potentially part of a criminal investigation or officer misconduct? Is that part of your policy?
Yes, we retain video that is related to any incident on the complex.
So if there were video of that, no one would have taped over it or destroyed it?
The video would not have been destroyed if someone saw an incident somewhere else on the complex, yes.
How about taped over? Would it have been taped over?
Well, by practice, it's automatic. You have to, my understanding is you have to selectively decide what you want to preserve. Otherwise...
Wouldn't potential officer misconduct be one of those things that you wanted to preserve?
Without knowing the facts, I don't know what took place beyond that entry point.
I yield to the chairman.
Thank the gentleman. The gentleman's time has expired. We now recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts,
Okay.
the ranking member of the subcommittee on national security, Mr. Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'm a little bit, more than a little bit, put out by the willful ignorance here. You know, when you let's just back up a second. The Secret Service is an intelligence gathering organization, and then you don't ask questions and you destroy evidence. I just I'm trying to have faith. I really am, and I offer no disrespect whatsoever. I think you're an honorable man, but I'll tell you, this whole system. You said at the tail end of your testimony that you had implemented a change to go to 7 days retention of video. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we went from 72 hours now to 7 days.
That's correct, with the intent to look at our storage capabilities to go beyond that.
All right. I'm actually going to, if we had to do it legislatively, the fact that the Department of Homeland Security requires Logan Airport to retain their videotapes, TSA, for 30 days. If I have to do it legislatively, I'm going to make a recommendation that we adopt legislation that requires that Secret Service keep video for 30 days, if that's what we got to do. Director Clancy, who is responsible? Who's the individual responsible for Technical Security Division? Because I want to send them a subpoena as well. They're not on this list of folks that we had, but who's that person?
Okay, now he is relatively new in the position. Just
It's okay.
Yeah, Joseph DePietro is the chief of the technical division now.
Okay. So would it be correct in me assuming that he's responsible for that whole surveillance around the White House and the technology, the tapes, the purging or scrubbing of the tapes and all that? Is that the person I want?
Yes, he would be able to talk to those questions that you have.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And we would give him a subpoena ducis tecum as well to have him bring whatever information he has. That'll be good. I mean, the local Piggly Wiggly, my local supermarket has 30 days of retained tapes. And so it's, by scrubbing those tapes, not asking for questions, it just, and coming from an intelligence gathering organization, it just, it leaves me almost speechless. And I just can't imagine a more deliberate attempt not to understand the nature of the problem. Let me see. What's the penalty? Now, it's clear from the tape that the two officers drove into an active bomb investigation. I don't think there's any question about that, right? Mr. Ogilvy and the other gentleman, I'm blanking on his name, but the two agents.
Mr. Connolly.
Mr. Connolly, okay. So you got an active bomb investigation going on, and they drive right into they drive right through it. I guess they were going back they left their car at the White House, so they were going to get their car. I understand that. But in the meantime, they drove right through an active bomb investigation. Any disagreement on that?
I don't know the facts in terms of going to get a vehicle, but I know they absolutely drove through an active investigation.
Okay, so there's no question about that, and yet we reassign them, so we know that. We don't even ask them questions about that, and yet we just reassign them to desk jobs. There's no discipline at all. What's the thinking behind that?
To put them on administrative leave they would have administrative leave with pay, and I felt that we could still get some work out of them. And also, I didn't want to do the discipline in a piecemeal fashion.
Well, I need to interrupt you right there. Yes, the signal that you're sending to every other Secret Service agent, uniformed and PPD, is that those folks were not penalized at all for doing what they did. And so you didn't remove them. You didn't remove them. Mm-hmm. I think it would have been a clear signal to send to every other member of the Secret Service that those two guys screwed up and they're gone for now, and we're gonna hold them responsible. Instead, and I know you're thinking about, okay, they'll be sitting at home instead of working, but I think on balance, I think it was a more important, especially with the history we've got here of folks shooting at the White House and jumping over the fence, and it's like the Keystone Cops here. So, I think it would be a more important message to send to the employees that these guys screwed up and they are being held accountable, rather than just putting them on a desk job.
And Congressman, I will rest assured, once we get the final report, which again, I'm told will be weeks, people will be held accountable.
Yeah.
And I can understand the frustration for many here in the committee, as well as within our workforce, but they're looking to see how are these things handled, and how do you handle agents as opposed to uniform division. And
yeah.
So I respect your view, sir.
I just want to, in closing, I just want to say there needs to be a rapid response to these incidents. We can't put this into a bureaucratic process where I get an answer in 8 weeks or 10 weeks.
Yes, sir.
That cannot happen. You need to have the ability to act right now on an incident like that, rather than, file some forms and bring in somebody else and engage in willful ignorance and let somebody else handle this stuff. You're in that spot because you're very capable, and we need you to, in the future, we need you to have the ability to act. I'll yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Now recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Meadows, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Clancy, thank you for your testimony. I want to return to what you said earlier about meeting with your senior staff and not asking what they knew. When did that happen?
Sir, it happened, and forgive me, sir, my memory with everything else that's converging, somebody can Wednesday. Wednesday, yeah, so.
Wednesday, what day?
That would have been the 11th.
All right, so you met with your senior staff, but you waited until Wednesday to meet with your senior staff when you were informed of this on the 9th? Why would you wait 2 days to meet with your senior staff?
Yeah, I had a hearing on the day in between, and
I have hearings every single day. It doesn't preclude me from asking detailed questions like that.
Forgive me, sir. Let me correct the record. I did not have a hearing. I don't know what my schedule was, what I was doing on Tuesday.
So why did you wait 2 days?
Yeah.
Was it not important to you, Mr. Clancy?
No, as I expressed earlier, this is hugely important to me and to the agency.
All right. So why did you said earlier you didn't ask a question what they knew.
Right.
Well, you're not interfering with an investigation for you to be informed of what they knew. That wouldn't have interfered with the investigation. Why wouldn't you have asked the question? Is it so that you could pull a Sergeant Schultz here today that you know nothing? I don't understand.
No, in fact, when I pulled that group together, this hearing was not scheduled. I did that because, again, it's probably hard to understand for this committee.
It is very hard for Mr. Lynch and I to understand how there would be a lack of inquisitive nature on why the director would not want to know.
Yeah. To be candid, I compartmentalized this incident. I gave it to the OIG so that I could concentrate on, I have protectees all around the world, classified documents I have to keep up with, President of Afghanistan. I've got all these other issues that really I need to focus on today and future threats. And this, in my mind,
well, the President of Afghanistan may be very important, and indeed he probably is, but the President of the United States is a lot more important, and I wouldn't compartmentalize and put that somewhere else, would you?
All of our protectees are important, but certainly this, in my mind, I gave it to the OIG, and I was content to wait until we get all the facts and not do things piecemeal, because I thought that was a dangerous path to take, to do things in a piecemeal fashion. Because as information starts to leak out, and information would have started to leak out, people would start.
So keeping these guys there working on administrative duties, do you not think that they have the ability to talk to some of their fellow workers and spin a different narrative instead of sending them home as Mr. Lynch had suggested? Do you think it's not dangerous that they might interfere with the investigation?
They could still converse, in my view, at their residences with anyone they wanted to. So keeping them.
So you haven't told them not to converse and tell a different story? I
haven't spoken to those individuals.
So these are GS-15, and you haven't spoken to them. Why?
The two individual.
Right. Why have you not spoken to them?
I didn't want to, again, interfere with the investigation. One is an SES, and one is a.
Mr. Clancy, you were hired to clean up the mess.
Yes.
And you and I have met personally before you were actually the official director. And I told you about a number of things where I was actually getting emails.
Yes.
And I still get emails, anonymous emails on all kinds of different things that are happening. Details in Honolulu where we've had some of the same accusations made that have been made in other parts of the country. Details where people have actually had major offenses and then were left within the Secret Service and allowed to retire a year later. What are you going to do? Because I ask you specifically about forced transfers and how the threatening of taking away their security clearance for some of the rank and file, and yet nothing has been done with that, Mr. Clancy. Are you going to act on that eventually?
Yes, in terms of threatening to take away their clearances, I understand that was in a letter that went out to people when they were routinely, we move people around the country, and it's
used as a force of manipulation for most of the rank and file, at least that's the way they see it. And so are you going to make sure that they know that their security clearance will not be taken away?
Right.
Pure and simple, yes or no?
The security clearance is not taken away as long
If
as
they decide not to transfer, you're not going to affect their security clearance.
You can't do that, Congressman. We need to have people. For example, now the President's detail needs additional personnel. So we have to move people from the field offices to the President's detail. If they say, no, I don't want to go to the President's detail, now we're short on the President's detail. So we have to. It's the nature of our business, and they're informed of that when they're hired.
You know, this sounds like just the same old problem that we had under the previous director, Mr. Clancy, and I'm very troubled. I'll yield back.
Yes, sir.
Thank the gentleman. Now recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Conley, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And Mr. Clancy, welcome to the committee, and thank you for your service to your country.
Yes, sir.
I want to cite, well, first of all, I think there's a lot of bipartisan agreement on this committee about a problem, obviously, at Secret Service, and I think that you're going to find there's bipartisan comity and agreement on an approach to how we resolve this. My friend, Mr. Gowdy, in his questioning, raised a very interesting point, and I'm pretty sympathetic with his point of view, but I'm open to hearing a counter-argument. You've got an OIG investigation going on, so they've got the tapes. Well, Congress has a constitutional role, irrespective of what an OIG is doing. Now, the fact that we have the power to compel doesn't always mean we should use it, especially with an ongoing investigation. There are plenty of precedents for not doing that, for not dropping that hammer, because we don't want to unduly interfere with prosecution or whatever it may be. But I would say, to underscore Mr. Gowdy's point, I think the burden is on you and your lawyers to make a case before this committee representing the institution of Congress for why at this time it would otherwise corrupt an ongoing investigation. Absent such compelling testimony or rationale, it seems to me this committee is entitled to those tapes for its own investigative purposes. We are an independent branch of government. We have every right to exercise our oversight. Hopefully we do it responsibly. But I'm telling you, in my view, we're going to move forward on a bipartisan basis on this issue. Not always the tradition of this committee, but in this case, I think that's where we're heading. And I don't speak for the ranking member, but I join with him in his observations. And a word to the wise, Mr. Clancy, that's where we're headed.
And Congressman, I sense all of you, your outrage, all of you, and I will go back and revisit this with our folks and with the department and see if we can accommodate the request. I've heard all of you loud and clear today with what we need to do.
I thank you. I'm going to try to get through 5 questions quickly, and hopefully you will cooperate. Do you believe, given your new responsibilities, and I know you've got a lifetime invested in this very noble service with a storied history, is there, however, do you think, parallel with that or sort of superimposed on that noble tradition, perhaps a creeping cultural problem that has to be addressed in your ranks? I think both the chairman and the ranking member cataloged a history going back of unfortunate headlines.
Yes. Congressman, I think we do. I think, to be candid,
we do what?
We do have an element we do have a small element that has a culture of, in this case, in most of our recent cases, alcohol has been involved in the most recent cases. However, I will say that the OIG did a report, and I think 8% of our incidents involved alcohol. But irregardless, looking back at our recent history, some alcohol has been used. So that is clearly something I'm concerned about, and we're looking at how to address that. In terms of the culture of not bringing information up through the ranks, there obviously is a concern with that, as all of you are getting these anonymous calls or maybe not anonymous. Either way, that's something we've got to fix. And I know it's not a proper answer, but some of these things take some time, and it has to come with building trust and this communication, and we're trying to hammer this home. That give us a chance through communication.
Okay. The 5-day delay, to what do you ascribe it? Was it bureaucratic inertia, or do you believe somebody was deliberately trying to withhold that from you so that to preclude your taking action?
This is speculation on my part. I don't think anyone was intentionally hiding it from me, but at a lower level, if they felt that, I don't know how they viewed the incident. And the OIG, again, I'm sorry to keep leaning on them, but we'll find out those facts. I don't want to speculate for those at that level, that rank.
Obviously, it would be very troubling if it were the latter, right?
Absolutely.
Bureaucratic inertia, we can manage through that and try to clean it up. But if somebody's deliberately stymieing your ability to scrutinize an unfortunate incident that it doesn't put us in a favorable light, then you got a different problem, Mr. Clancy.
It would be a direct reflection of my leadership.
Well, it would be a direct challenge of your leadership. I don't know that it yet reflects your leadership. Well. And that's another element of concern, I think, both for us and for the public. We had a review panel that recommended strongly that the president should seek an outside director for your position. He didn't take that advice. He chose you because he had confidence in you, apparently. And there is an argument to be made that only an insider, a careerist like yourself, can actually make the tough decisions, knows where the bodies are buried, and doesn't put up with sort of nonsensical arguments. On the other hand, the counter-argument can be, yeah, we've put somebody in there who's co-opted, who couldn't possibly be a change agent, and isn't what we need. I'd like to give you the opportunity as my final moment of questioning to respond to that.
Well, thank you, Congressman. Let me just say one of the things we've done since I've come in, it's not the same old upper tier of management. We have made some changes, and primarily because we wanted to take better advantage of our subject matter civilian experts. So what we've done in the past, we've had a director and a deputy director. Now we have a deputy, and just recently made a deputy director who was named. But additionally, at the same level, a chief operating officer. We're reaching out for a chief operating officer who will not be from within the agency. He or she will be from the private sector. And then underneath that chief operating officer, who again is on equal level with the agent, the deputy director, we have a tier of several, a chief financial officer, chief information officer, several other civilian experts in that side of the house, and we're integrating both of them. So. This is not the same old Secret Service from 1 month ago. In the short time, 30 days I've been here, we've made significant changes to the traditional culture and the structure of the upper management. And we are new, including myself. And I'd like to have some time to try to let that progress.
I thank the gentleman. Now recognize the chairman of the Subcommittee on National Security, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. DeSantis, for 5 minutes.
Director, I'm trying to figure out with this video policy. Last week you said that there were 3 clips of the woman with the suspicious package, but only 2 clips of the agents in the vehicle. So why is there 1 more clip of the woman than of the agents?
Where the female was positioned, it's outside of that gate area, just outside. So that is specific to that incident with the suspicious package and the confrontation between the officer and the lady. So there are 3 very short clips of that and her actions. The other 2 clips are more, although it captures the package, a suspicious package, but it also captures the agents nudging that barrel and coming through a secure zone.
So, but the third angle just would not have captured the vehicle. Is that why?
The first one would not have. Well, there are 2 different time frames. Yeah, I can't answer that question, sir. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because Mr. Gowdy's questions about allowing Congress access, so you do not want to provide Congress with any of its own versions or copies that we can then look, review with the staff, and then determine the next steps that we may want to take with the investigation. Is that your position?
As just recently said that I will revisit. I understand the outrage on this. Our initial offer was to be there whenever you needed to view it. We would provide it at any time, day or night, but I understand that's not
Okay, good. Yeah, and I've been bouncing around, so I apologize. I did not hear that. Now, Mr. Gowdy also raised the issue of this Inspector General, and I know you're doing what you think you're required to do, but sitting here in hearings and across the whole federal government conducting oversight, the number of times where witnesses say, well, that's the IG, you know, we can't do anything, we can't give you information, Congress, because of the IG. And I just don't believe that that was ever the intent of Inspector Generals, to cause the rest of the world to stand still. I mean, we have an independent duty to conduct oversight over all these agencies. We are asked to fund the agencies, and I think the American people obviously need to know what's going on so that we can make decisions about that. What is the timeline of the IG investigation?
I'm told weeks. Now, again, I haven't been conversing with the IG. I did have one call with the Inspector General, but I'm told it would be a matter of weeks, not months.
And he's also doing a kind of look-back investigation for some of the previous incidents. Is that correct?
I saw that somewhere in print, but I'm not sure we talked about that. But
so that was not something that you asked the IG. You went to the IG with the incident at the gate.
Specifically this incident, yes.
Okay, and then at that point, well, let me ask you this. With the witnesses that were invited, we had 4 witnesses that we asked to attend. They are not obviously here. So what is the reason for not bringing those witnesses here today?
There's a couple of reasons for that, right or wrong. They're the rank and file. They didn't sign up for coming in front of an open hearing with this, with the cameras and lights, and I think it's my responsibility. It's my responsibility.
But did you? Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have not allowed them to be interviewed behind the scenes, have you?
We have not. Now, I understand the staffs may still be discussing that, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my understanding is that we're not doing that. Again, it goes back to interviewing people twice. You get different stories. Every time you interview someone, you get a little slight difference, not intentionally, but it can be perceived different. And we went through some examples of this in the closed-door hearing, but I think you should have one investigation for initially to do their investigation, and then if there are gaps or whatever, then certainly others can follow up.
Well, I think that's problematic. I mean, we have our own duty to conduct oversight, and the questions that we may ask from a congressional perspective may be different than what an IG would be looking at. And I think we're all interested in accountability, but how that accountability would be done within the executive branch will be different than how we, as a group that has received recommendations, that knows that there's going to be funding issues with this, of some of the issues that we would want to examine. And so I'm not satisfied that is the way to do it. And I join the chairman. I wish at a minimum that these witnesses would have been provided at least behind the scenes so that we could have received some answers. And I yield back.
We'll revisit that, sir.
Thank the gentleman. I'll recognize the gentlewoman from Michigan, Ms. Lawrence, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Clancy, I looked for the core values of the Secret Service, and on the website it says that the agency has 5 core values: justice, duty, courage, honesty, and loyalty. These values in the Secret Service adage is worthy of trust and confidence. And that to reinforce these values, Secret Service leaders and employees promote and measure personal accountability and program performance across the agency by holding each person to the highest standards of personal and professional integrity. The Secret Service ensures that they preserve the core values and the fulfillment of the vision and the success of that mission. And then I'm always interested in leadership. And so I understand that you have 27 years as a veteran of the Secret Service. And during your career, you were a special agent in charge of the Presidential Protection Division.
That's correct.
You yourself was in charge of that division. And that during your tenure of 27 years, you also served in the Secret Service Office of Investigation, the agency's Internal Affairs Division. Is that correct?
That's correct, for a brief time.
So my concern after listening to all the testimony, and my question to you today is that I recognize that you were brought into this office or given this opportunity, and you've been in the office a little more than 30 days, but you were brought in February of this year, correct? And in looking at your resume, I would think that experience like this would put you at a position where investigative skills, the knowledge of how a department should operate, because you went up through the ranks. So you have actually performed the duties of the people you are now the director of. But I hear things like, I don't know, I'm outraged, that shouldn't have happened. Yes, there is a culture. When you're put into the job, you're expected to bring all those skills and to provide leadership and to be able to address issues and concerns. I'm really challenged right now. My question to you, with all of your experience and with the continuing, because when you were brought on, we already had those issues that we have outlined today. How are you going to make a difference? I know that you say you need time, but when I hear you didn't talk to those who were your executive level to investigate this, when you yourself were in charge of the agency's internal affairs, I would think that you would be really prepared to be able to dig right into that and to sit here today and have a clear vision and a clear mission under your leadership, how you're going to address these. And I'm not hearing that. So my question to you today, as a member of Congress and of this committee, is where is the vision, the leadership, and just the fierce commitment to these core values that you took yourself personally, that you now personally are in charge of making sure that that is the mission of this agency? I need you to give that to me, because I'm not hearing it.
Congresswoman, in my opening statement, I said this is my life's work. I've spent most of my life, 27, 28 years, protecting 4 presidents. I've given everything I've had at great expense, personal expense, to ensure that our protectees, our presidents, are safe. I didn't come back from private industry to just enjoy the ride. This is critical for me. It's critical for the country. I'm going to give it everything I have. I'm immersed in it. I spend hours talking to people at all levels. We're pushing it out to this new leadership team that we've just built. We've built this new leadership team. We're bringing up the professional people to marry the responsibilities of law enforcement, get them working together. This is a new look. We're trying to reinvigorate the look of the Secret Service. And unfortunately, I don't have a magic wand. It's going to take a little bit of time. But one of the things that's going to be key here is once this report's done, are people held accountable? And we have this table of penalties that we'll work with, and it's based on what other agencies use, and we've only had it for about a year, but we will definitely be holding people accountable, and that's what our people want to see. You know, when you go around and ask why is their morale down, there's several reasons. Quality of life is one of them, but the other thing is we're not holding people accountable in a consistent manner, and I think that's what one of the members said here today. So that's our first test. Are we being consistent with the way we hold people accountable, and ensure we follow up with that accountability?
I thank the gentlewoman.
I yield back my time, but results is what will measure your leadership.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank the gentlewoman. We'll now recognize the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Mulvaney, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Clancy, for being here. I'm going to ask you a couple of specific questions about the incident that we'll be discussing here today, and then I want to talk more generally, I think, about the agency. That, as best I can tell, a layman's summary of this is that a woman dropped off what she said was a bomb at 10:24 on a Wednesday night. Yet it looks like the be on the lookout order didn't go out until Thursday afternoon at 4:15. Does that delay surprise you? Is that ordinary course of business? Is that unusual?
I can't confirm. I'm going to ask my staff if that's the actual time frame for that to go out.
Well, let's assume for sake of discussion that it is. Would that be too long?
It would be too long.
Have y'all looked into why because I can assure you it did take that long. I'm looking at the document in front of me. I'd be happy to share it with you. Have you investigated why that happened yet?
Our investigative office certainly will investigate why they're going to look at the whole process.
But you've talked to your folks about this, right? I mean, you said you've talked to your senior folks about it. You've done perhaps not a formal investigation, but you've asked them why, right?
On the incident revolving the lady throwing the suspicious package, yeah. I have talked to our people about that. I've been briefed on the incident.
But you still don't have any idea why it took that long to put it on the be on the lookout order.
I don't know why it took that long, no.
And then, and again, I'm just coming to this issue for the first time. You found her the Friday morning, the woman who threw a package at the White House and then ran over a Secret Service agent with an open car door. She was speeding away. You found her on Friday morning at a hotel in Virginia. Your agents talked to her in the lobby of the hotel while she's having breakfast, and they didn't detain her. Were you aware of that?
I am aware of it after being briefed, yes.
Why didn't they detain her?
I'm going to make an assumption here other than the fact that there was no arrest warrant out. The arrest warrant came out the following day, I believe.
How long should it take you to get a warrant for somebody who throws a bomb at the White House?
Well, the other factors here, again, making an assumption, is that at this point we know their books. We know that she has a history with the Secret Service, and she has been interviewed in the past.
She does have a history, so you knew who she was. The arrest warrant, by the way, didn't go out until the following Tuesday. It took you 7 days to get the warrant to arrest this lady, which takes me to the next step in the timeline. On Saturday, she was arrested by local police in Virginia. And the local police called your PIOC, and the PIOC told the local police that the suspect is no longer a Secret Service, on the Secret Service lookout. Were you aware of that?
I was not.
Does that strike you as something unusual and strange and perhaps wrong?
It does. I'm not sure why she would not be a lookout.
And I guess we could, I don't want to pile on, Mr. Clancy, because I know it's been a rough day for you, but I would hope that this has been a month now since this happened. You knew it was a high-profile event. Now, granted, a lot of the attention went to what happened with the officers that evening, but still, a woman threw a bomb at the White House, or at least something she said was a bomb when she dropped it off. It turned out that it wasn't. And for you at this point, sir, not to know these details is a little disappointing to me, but we'll leave that for another day. Let me ask you my general question. Sir. You've been there 27 years. You seem like a very dedicated public service, and I thank you for your service. I think people undervalue folks like you and what you do for this nation. Has it always been this bad?
No, sir.
What changed?
Sir, I don't know that answer. I wish I did. I know there was great dedication when I was younger, and I know there's great dedication now. I honestly believe it's a smaller element of people that are not satisfied. And again, it goes back to how we're treating our people. You know, and they're getting crushed, some of them, with the hours because the staffing is so limited. And we're up for some real challenges as we go into the fall here with the Pope's visit and the UN. That is going to be a tremendous challenge, which again is going to create a tremendous burden on our workforce. And I think that's part of it too. I think that the demands on the workforce as our mission has somewhat expanded, but primarily our staffing levels haven't kept up. And I think that's affecting our morale. But I don't want to dismiss the leadership. You know, leadership is a key part of this too, and that's something that I've got to correct and got to work on. But the staffing levels, which we're making some headway to, I think that's going to help over time.
Well, let's look at that together. Let me ask you one last question, Mr. Clancy, just out of curiosity. Was it better when y'all were under Treasury? Is that part of the problem here, that you're under Homeland now and not Treasury?
Well, again, I was a young agent, young manager when we were under Treasury, so I don't know those relationships and how that worked during that time frame. So I wouldn't be able to give a good answer on that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman. Now recognize the gentlewoman from the Virgin Islands, Ms. Plaskett, for 5 minutes.
Yes, good morning, and thank you very much, Chairman and Ranking Member. Mr. Clancy, thank you so much for your time here. My questions really go along the same line, but a much more condensed time frame as my colleague, Mr. Mulvaney. And I wanted to really talk with you about allegations that are out there as opposed to facts. I have a real problem with people putting information out that is not substantiated by direct facts. So I wanted to talk about this anonymous email and some of the allegations that are in it. We understand that you received this anonymous email 5 days after the fact, correct?
That's correct.
And you're now very familiar with this, and it was given to this committee yesterday. And I wanted to walk you through some of the allegations that were in there to see what you have been able to ascertain as being factual as opposed to those which are not credible or you still do not have information about. In the email, it says at some point, an ATSAIC from WFO, George Ogilvy, and a PPD DSAIC, Mark McConnelly, drove through a crime scene tape. Now, I'm going to get back to that allegation of a crime scene tape specifically, but later on it says the officers at the scene said that they were both extremely intoxicated. They were coming home from Ed Donovan's retirement dinner. Were they in fact returning from a retirement dinner? Do you know that?
I know there was a retirement dinner that night. I don't know if they were coming from the retirement dinner.
You haven't been able to ascertain the list of the guests or individuals who were there?
I have not. I've stepped away from it for the OIG.
Okay, but the OIG is looking into that?
Yes, they are.
All right. And they apparently flipped on the lights of their GOVs to go around the roadblocks. What's a GOV?
It's a government-owned vehicle.
So they were in government vehicles coming back to the White House?
That's correct.
And they went, did they in fact go around the roadblock? What does that mean?
I don't know that. It would be an assumption on my part.
Mm-hmm.
I know that when they arrived at the gate on E Street and 15th Street, there was a barrel there that was placed there by our officers to secure the zone, and they did go through, they moved that barrel over.
Okay, well it says, the email says, apparently flipped on the lights. Does that mean, I've been an investigator and a prosecutor, apparently means that the person doesn't know themselves. What do you think? Do you believe that this individual who sent this email was in fact there at the scene?
I don't know that because I don't know if the lights were flicked on or not. Reading that, it sounds like it's secondhand information, but that would be an assumption on my part.
That's what I get out of it. And that the agents nudged the barrel as opposed to, we have heard nudged, we've heard crashed. Which one was it?
It was more of a nudge. It was on the right side of the bumper.
And why would you call it a nudge as opposed to a crash?
Because the barrel didn't cross over. It wasn't. It was more of a purposeful move. Wasn't losing control of a vehicle. It was a very delicate movement of the barrel with the vehicle.
How fast were they going?
About 1 to 2 miles an hour.
So to crash something would probably require a much greater speed.
Yes, the barrel would have been tipped over.
Okay. Now I want to talk about a specific time period. We have, and you tell me if I'm correct with these times, at 10:24, the suspect drives up, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then at 10:30, the Joint Operations Center notifies the Metropolitan Police Department.
Yes, that's correct.
10:32, they report the uniform division reports the incident to that Joint Operating Center. Right? 10:32?
Yeah, I don't have the timeline in front of me, but yes.
And then at 10:47, a notification message goes out. Right? At 10.
Timeline, yes.
Okay. No, at 10:47, the POC sends a notification message regarding the suspicious package.
Yes.
And then at 11:12, the PIC issues the first of 2 notification alerts regarding the suspicious package.
Yes.
Okay, what is the difference between the one at 10:47, a notification message, and the 11:12, the notification alerts?
11:12. The alerts should be the same. They're both. Oh yeah, they're both protective alerts to alert the director staff that there is a suspicious package or there's an incident at the White House or whatever the incident is. So they are updates to the original alert.
Okay, and when did the officers arrive on the scene?
Metropolitan arrived.
No, the 2 officers in question.
The 2 officers in question arrived at
10:58.
10:58.
Yeah. 10:58.
Yeah.
So they didn't know that there was a scene there, did they? At 11:12, when the notifications went out.
They should have. They would have received the notification. Typically, senior staff would receive these notifications, so they should know. And they the assumption is they saw the barrels there, and they should know.
But based on the emails, was there crime scene tape? Was there any notification? Was there anything there that would have let them know that this was a scene, crime scene?
From the video that I looked at, when the committee has looked at, I don't remember seeing any crime tape or any tape. There may have been some out there, but I didn't see it in the video that I saw.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence with the time. It just appears that this anonymous email does not necessarily comport with the information that we have in fact.
That's why we need to see the tapes. We'll now recognize the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Heiss, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Clancy, who is required under the policies of the Secret Service to report misconduct?
Anyone can report misconduct.
Okay, we have a slide in that regard. So my question is not can anyone report misconduct, but who is required to do so?
Every supervisor is required to report misconduct.
Okay, and if a supervisor fails to report misconduct, there are penalties. We have another slide. Okay,
that's correct.
All right, so these slides are accurate in terms of what is required and the punishment, the penalty, if policy is not followed. On the night of March 4th, Captain Michael Braun was a watch commander overseeing the White House. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and in a nutshell, what does the watch commander mean?
The watch commander is the on-duty supervisor for the White House complex.
Okay, so the on-duty supervisor in charge that night. Who does the supervisor, the watch commander, report to?
He reports to an inspector in Uniform Division.
Okay. Who does the inspector report to?
The inspector reports to the deputy chief in Uniform Division.
Which would be who?
Which would be Alfonso Dyson.
Okay. Who does Deputy Chief Dyson report to?
He reports to the special agent in charge of the president's detail.
Which would be who?
Robert Buster.
Okay. Now, you have confirmed that the incident was reported. Is that correct? Yes, the incident on March 4th, it was all reported. Did it go through the proper chain of command?
It was reported up to the deputy chief of the White House complex, Mr. Dyson, and from that point on, I don't know what notifications were made.
Okay, what were the reports that were made done so in a timely manner? When were they reported?
And again, there's 2 separate incidents. So if you're talking about the misconduct, I know that it stopped at.
Well, really both. I mean, the question I'm trying to determine if we're following the proper chain of command and doing so properly.
The incident involving the throwing of the books, that followed the proper chain of command. The incident involving the misconduct, it did not follow.
It did not. Okay. And so it did not, could it be that it did not follow the proper chain of command for the misconduct because he was a superior officer, a superior agent? Could they have been intimidated, fearful, or even instructed not to report Mr. Connally?
I can't answer that, but I'm sure when they interview the watch commander, that would come out. But I can't answer that. I don't know.
Don't you?
All for $50, period. Don't miss HelloBeautiful.com Interludes Live, Neo, Saturday at 10 on TV1. Brought to you by Metro PCS.
Metro PCS introduces the best offer ever, unlimited 4G LTE. That's right, unlimited blazing fast 4G LTE data.
Unlimited. Unlimited.
Unlimited. Riding on the nationwide T-Mobile network.
No limits. $50, period.
Taxes and fees included. But hurry and sign up by April 5th. Metro PCS, unlimited 4G LTE, riding on the T-Mobile network. $50, period.
We aren't looking for just any college students. We're looking for the fighters, the focused, and formidable. With GPAs that include grit, perseverance, ambition. Who want professors who know them by name, see who they can be. Students who want more than a degree on graduation day. They want a career. If you're this kind of student, you're our kind of different. DeVry University. Different on purpose.
Oh, you like to think that you're immune to this stuff. Oh, yeah. It's closer to the truth to say you can't get enough. You know you're gonna have to face it. You're addicted to love. Might as well face it. You're addicted to love. Might as well face it. You're addicted to love. Might as well face it. You're addicted to love.
Anyone have occasional constipation, diarrhea, gas, bloating?
Yes.
One Phillips Colon Health probiotic cap each day helps defend against these occasional digestive issues with 3 types of good bacteria. Live the regular life. Phillips.
You totaled your brand new car. Nobody's hurt, but there will still be pain. It comes when your insurance company says they'll only pay 3/4 of what it takes to replace it. What are you supposed to do? Drive 3/4 of a car? Now, if you had Liberty Mutual new car replacement, you'd...
We'll now recognize the gentlewoman from New Mexico, Ms. Lujan Grisham, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Clancy, I recognize that this is a difficult environment, and I have to say that I think there's general agreement by both sides of the aisle in this committee and in other committees of jurisdiction that this is a significant series of issues that affect the Secret Service and then ultimately affect the security and safety of the Commander-in-Chief and largely everybody else in the White House and the credibility of the country as a whole about our ability to provide that level of protection and security here and currently abroad. And I also know that no amount of money will fix an environment that is like the environment that you're describing, where there are questions of accountability, transparency, whether there are reprimands, whether those are fair, whether it's clear that you've got low morale, that folks aren't reporting incidents. You said while you're having an independent review, you did say that the chain of command on the face was not followed. And I would have to agree that even if you get ancillary and additional information, that in and of itself warrants some action. And there may be other actions as you garner more information about what's coming. And so I believe that without a sustained and concerted effort to change the culture of the Secret Service, that nothing will change. Now, I say this because I've headed a difficult culture change in my career when I was the Department of Health Secretary, and it requires rigorous, constant work and a clear time frame where you are evaluating whether or not those culture shifts are making a difference. And while I understand that you're making administrative changes, that there'll be some new folks, if you're not careful and that's all administrative, you still aren't going to attract the right kinds of shifts in a culture change in the Secret Service. And I also recognize that you've got a very difficult job and that we expect you, because that's part of your job, you have to restore not only the operations but our trust and the public's trust that you can do that. I also know it's an honor and privilege to work for the Secret Service. So here's the question. Tough environment. We don't feel like we're getting the right answers. You're trying to have some independence, but we're not seeing the kind of work day to day that would indicate leadership on culture change. Give me some substantive, clear examples, more than the CAO, about what you're doing to instill a culture shift in the Secret Service.
Number one is staffing. We know that our people are being overworked, and we're trying to build up their staffing. And once we do that, give them more training so that they can, if they receive this training, they're going to feel more pride in their work, I think, be more efficient, and just operate better. We've also initiated about 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago now, a work-life initiative where we're reaching out to our workforce to see what's troubling them, what do they need from us, what suggestions do they have. We brought in an outside contractor to do this. We expect to hear some very promising results, but I would say also that some of these changes we're making, including the COO and the CIO, et cetera, the Chief Financial Officer, those changes are going to have an impact on the workforce.
I'm not getting a sense, though, about that timeline, and I'm not saying I disagree that those investments are important, but I'm going to disagree that you need to give me something, and I'd like something about your management style. If there's not accountability for every investment that you make in supporting that workforce, which I agree, you got to have a workforce that feels like they're supported, but they also have to feel like it's a fair work environment. And if there's no accountability or transparency, I don't believe that you will have the changes that you desire. What kind of management style? What is the message that you're providing today to the Secret Service?
Yeah. We are reaching out in ways that we haven't done it in the past to hear our workforce. All of our executives are getting out to talk to the workforce and investigations. In fact, next week I'm going.
So accountability is not part of your management style.
Absolutely it is.
I mean, I'm not hearing that from you, Mr. Clancy.
Well, accountability, and again, once this investigation is completed, then we'll see what accountability is administered. And we do have this table of penalties, which is very strict. We have to follow, and it shows that we are serious about holding people accountable. So there's no making decisions on our own here, how do we discipline? We have it in stone, and it's modeled after other agencies. So, and you're right, that's what our people want to see, accountability, fairness across the board.
I'm still concerned, I have to say. With that, I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We thank the gentlewoman. We'll now recognize the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter, for 5 minutes. Or Mr. Palmer, pardon me. Mr. Palmer.
It's the second straight hearing where I've been misappropriated to the wrong state. My jurisdiction has expanded. Thank you, Mr. Clancy, for coming in today. There's many reports that suggest the Secret Service morale is at an all-time low. According to the Best Places to Work in Federal Government report, the agency ranks 226th out of 300 agencies. There are routine requests for uniformed division officers to work on their days off, Secret Service, and the Secret Service's failure to pay proper overtime. This is particularly troubling in the context of what we've been discussing, because when you have low morale at what was once one of the most respected agencies in the world, it seems to be indicative of a climate and an environment not conducive to excellence. And in some respects, not conducive to integrity. How do you respond to that?
Well, you're exactly right. When I went to this roll call the other night, the first question, when I asked, what are the issues here, what do you need, and why are we having these issues? And the staffing was the first thing they said. They said, we can't get a day off. To get a day off in uniform division, very often you have to put in a leave slip to sick leave, and you may have a very important function within your family. Now, we all grow up with that. You know, you miss your anniversaries and birthdays and all that growing up, but it's more exasperated now, especially within the uniform division. They're routinely held over for additional 4 hours, or their days off are canceled, and that's one of the most important things we got.
Let's talk about the excessive overtime, and this was brought up in a previous hearing, and the lack of training. I think they said that uniformed officers were getting 25 minutes training, and that the protection detail previously had been spending 25% of their own duty time in training. It's now down to 2%. Does that not indicate that you've got a staffing problem? And not only that, in the context of what's happened, the quality of the people that you're recruiting, I frankly don't understand why you're advertising for Secret Service agents on bumper stickers instead of going to college campuses and recruiting the best and brightest that you can find.
Well, first of all, we've corrected that. We've asked for funding to go out to these universities, to the military bases, and do a better job of recruiting. I will say we get still I heard 40,000 people applied for a special agent position. So we're getting a lot of people, but trying to get the right people, it takes us a while to get to them.
All right. In that regard, though, Deputy Assistant Director James Heminsky sent an email to all the Secret Service field officers saying that because of an upcoming class the Secret Service was trying to fill in March, all background investigations had to be completed within 3 days. I, in a previous position, had a national security clearance, and I can promise you that they did not do the background check in 3 days. Are you familiar with this email?
I'm not familiar with that particular email. I know typically they're given 14 days, and I think there was some talk to bring it back to 10 days to speed up that background check. But they still go through the polygraph examination. They still go through several other steps.
10 days, though, even 10 days, you know.
Yeah, right.
When you're responsible for safeguarding the president and his family and other members of the executive branch, does it make sense to have, and in this case, a 3-day background check?
No, let me just say this, that there are specific requirements in that background check, so they have to be met. We don't lessen the requirements. And again, it's about a 7-month or 8-month process to ensure that we get right people, good people. They're fully vetted, and that's one of the reasons why it takes a while to get our staffing levels up.
You've had some foreign nationals.
Clearance, yes.
You've had some foreign nationals apply, and in one case you had a Chinese-born foreign national who apparently had her review expedited in the Washington field office, despite the fact that it wasn't confirmed whether or not she had renounced her Chinese citizenship. What is the Secret Service's policy for someone who applies, a foreign national who applies who has dual citizenship?
Yeah, I don't have that answer. What's that? You have to, being advised, we have to renounce your citizenship. Renounce your citizenship. Mandatory.
I realize that this country is a melting pot, but does it make sense that we're recruiting foreign nationals to serve in the Secret Service?
Yeah. Yes, she has to be a U.S. citizen. That's to be employed by the federal government.
I believe my time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman from Alabama, a great state of Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now recognize the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Rothman, for 5 minutes.
Thanks much. First of all, I want to just say I disagree a little bit for one of my statements of one of my colleagues. It doesn't bother me if some of your guys don't have college degrees. I mean, that's overrated. I know so many great people without college degrees. But we want to ask you some questions, dig in a little bit more about this situation with this woman's vehicle. According to Metropolitan Police, they weren't contacted until 30 minutes after she fled the scene. Is that an accurate statement?
I don't know if that's accurate or not, sir.
Okay. I'd look into it, because at least that's what I have here on my paper. And I mean, to me, if you had two law enforcement divisions, you know, say in my neck of the woods, the county and the city, and somebody was fleeing into the county, man, the sheriff's department would be notified immediately. I mean, it's kind of scary if it took them 30 minutes.
I would just say that I know they, in a very short period of time, I think reached out for the bomb explosive unit. So it should have been in that same time frame that the police force was notified.
Maybe my stuff here is wrong, but check into it. Did you have a copy of her license plate right away?
They had a license plate.
Okay. Did you find somebody show up like right away where she lived, assuming there was a...
My understanding is that the license plate is what helped identify who this individual was.
Right. And I assume that once you know the person is, at least they have an address on file. Did somebody show up at the
Yes,
at the house?
they showed up at the spouse's address in the Philadelphia region, and we had agents go out to that residence and talk to the spouse, who indicated that this lady was down in the Washington area.
Okay, what was her name?
Yeah, I can't say that in a public hearing. I'll be happy to give it to you later.
Okay. What else can I say? How for every open spot, how many applications do you get for Secret Service?
When I first came back here as the acting director, I was told that for a special agent vacancy announcement, we had 45,000 people apply, and very few actually made it through the process.
Okay, like very few means how many?
I'm told there were about 70 that made it through the process. Now, that's on USA Jobs, 45,000, and so it was very cumbersome. Yeah.
Okay, but you get 70 people who at least make the first thing for everybody in there. You said a lot of these problems are alcohol related, which is kind of scary, but you weren't familiar how to deal with them. I guess it kind of bothers me because, like, I have a lot of trucking companies in my district. I mean, you can't drink at all. I mean, nevertheless, these guys never seem to have huge problems finding guys to drive truck who don't have an alcohol problem. And I guess I'll just suggest you talk to some of the local trucking firms, and if you know you guys are having a hard time finding guys without alcohol problems, you can ask them how they do it.
Well, first of all, we've changed the policy. Driving within 10 hours, you cannot enter a government-owned vehicle or a leased vehicle. That policy has gone out. We've revisited that, and yeah.
Okay, I just wrap up with one more thing and kind of a follow-up on what Congressman Palmer said there. When I was a kid, I mean, the Secret Service was the top of the top. I mean, if you heard the Secret Service was coming to town, you really felt you had an elite institution. And, you know, you go through the stuff in the file when they get their name in the paper the last 4 or 5 years. It's kind of embarrassing. I mean, it's almost like a screenplay for some comedy or something like that. So just good luck in your new job, and hope you can do something to bring back the pride, and just explain to the guys you're working with and gals that you're working with that right now it's like I said, you look at it, it's like some comedy movie starring Phil Silvers or something or other.
Congressman, thank you. And I will say that as we are focusing on certainly the negative aspect that we have had over several years here, I don't want to paint the entire 6,500 force in a negative light. We have people that are doing great work, and they're pained by this as much as we are here. But there's certainly an element, and rightfully so, we've got to work to try to get them to where they need to be.
Gentleman, yield.
Thanks so much for coming over, and I yield the remainder of my time.
Go ahead. Let me ask you, 45,000 applications. What's the reason most of these people don't make it? And I think a lot of people don't realize that we are hitting a brick wall in this country, in many instances with regard to quality of people. And I hate to say it, when I listen to my Baltimore City Police Department and others, they tell me they have to go through a whole lot of applications before they can get to a few people. And I'm just wondering, when you talk about 45,000 to fill how many positions?
It would be a class of 24 is my understanding. That's what I heard when I first came back. And
so what's the main reasons why? If you know.
Yeah, again, just as more anecdotal than having the stats right in front of me, but primarily it's drug-related past or credit issues in the past. They're two of the things that rule people out. But one of the things we're doing now is that with this accepted service, we can bring people in that we may know that have a good background, and they can get into that pipeline a little bit quicker to go through the polygraph and do the background check and all that. So rather than waste a lot of time on people that we don't know if they're going to make it through or not, we can highlight those that we know will probably get through that process.
Thank you.